Okay, here we at the old town trolley tours in St. Augustine. And we did book online, which we saved 19%. They have free parking. So we're just gonna see if we can get a map and pamphlets there. There's Sheriff Joe Perry. So he was quite the sheriff here. And here's the line to get on the trolley. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
All the way around town. How about that? Okay. We're going to do 22 stops as we travel around, everyone. If you have a map there, it probably shows 21 stops, but you should have an insert also, and that shows our new stop. That's stop number 11. So you're at stop number 1 right now. Like I said, you can hop off and on at any of those stops. If you join Cajun along the way, I'm going to take you back. He sets sail. He misses Bimini, but he runs right into the coast of Florida. That was on Easter Sunday, 1513. Now think about that for a second. Easter's coming up in a few weeks, right? Florida's lovely around that time of year. All the flowers were blooming. And Marco look like on a smaller scale, ladies and gentlemen. You can go in there, take a look around if you want to. It's got a pretty nice bar. Maybe have an hors d'oeuvre in there later on. The Castillo Restaurant. Our next stop is right over there. This is stop number 2. Gilded Age by chance?
Yes.
Yeah, I heard a yes here and there. If you haven't, I might spark your interest. Let's talk about the Gilded Age for a while. Roughly the time frame from the 1870s through the roaring 20s until the Great Depression happened. The days of the robber barons, the titans of industry. Men like Vanderbilt, Carnegie, Jay Gould, who built the banks. The steel industry and the railroads. Well, Henry Flagler and his partner John D. Rockefeller, they owned Standard Oil. They were very, very wealthy men, once the second and third most wealthiest men on the face of the earth. So they had a ton of money. And as I mentioned earlier, you may have heard it from another driver if you've been with somebody else. Henry Flagler, he fell in love with St. Augustine when he visited in 1885. He got the idea to make it the destination for snowbirds, wealthy folks from the Northeast who wanted to come down here and winter in St. Augustine. Well, he had all the money he needed to realize his vision. What he didn't have was the land to build his grand hotels on, so he approached a Methodist congregation. They had a spot of land where he wanted to build a hotel. He made a deal with them. He said, if you give me that piece of land, I'll build you a brand new church. And on your right, folks, that is the church Henry Flagler built for the Methodists. It's called the Grace United Methodist Church. It opened its doors in the late 1880s. That church right there cost Henry $88,000 to build. And in return, the piece of land he got was valued at only $4,000. You're going to see that later on as we're traveling around town. Take a look. It's right there. That's the ancient City Baptist Church. It opened its doors in the late 1800s, 1880s also. It's made of brick, of course. But again, it's been around for over a century and a quarter, and it's going nowhere. Very solidly built structures. Our next stop, coming up on your right, perhaps the most beautiful church here in St. Augustine, the Flagler Memorial Presbyterian Church. He wanted this church built in less than a year in honor of his daughter, Jenny Louise, in her memory. She died in childbirth along with her infant daughter. He hired Carrera and Hastings, an architectural firm out of New York, to build this church. It was completed in 1889. Look how ornate it is, folks. The stained glass windows, the dome on top, 150 feet in the air. There's a cross on top of that. And how solidly it's built. This church cost $200,000 to build back in those days. It seats a congregation of 600. It's still an active Presbyterian church. When we come to a stop, if you want to exit the trolley here, please exit to your right only. Live traffic on our left. And watch those curves. They can be a little tricky. That was the exhaust for Thomas Edison's dynamo generators. They were installed in the building straight ahead. That made this hotel one of the first all-electric hotels in the United States. Those generators were so unique that when their service was finished, they were taken to Washington, D.C., where they are now on permanent display in the Smithsonian. And check out the grounds also, ladies and gentlemen. This is one magnificent place to go to college. It's a magnificent place to stay back in those days. And speaking of that, what Henry was most concerned about was the season. The season ran from Christmas to Easter. You could stay here a day, a month, or the entire season. You could come and go as you please. Your room would always be here. That's because you purchased a room for the season, and the cost was $9,000, period, over and out. There was nothing during the season. That's what the deal was, to stay here. Teddy Roosevelt stayed here, as well as Lyndon B. Johnson, the last president to do so. That's because in 1967, the hotel closed. It reopened 1 year later. That's Flagler College. We're in the grand dining room of the Ponce. Those windows are original Tiffany stained glass windows. There's over 70 of them. Today they are valued, insured at over $130 million. Now guess who has all their meals in there every day, all day long? The students, that's right. I don't know about y'all, but I went to a military college in Charleston, South Carolina. It's called the Citadel. You may have heard of it. We were lucky if we got to look out windows at all, much less $130 million windows. I do not. Now straight ahead, you're going to see the second grand hotel. We're going to make a right-hand turn. It was called the Alcazar Hotel. It also opened in 1888, also with 500 rooms. The Ponce was the opulent hotel. It was a luxury hotel. So when Henry built the one across the street, he wanted it to be a little less expensive, and he wanted it to have entertainment. And you can tell the difference as you travel along. The way this one was built versus the way the Alcazar was built. And we'll talk about that entertainment later on. We're traveling over there. That'll be one of our stops. But first, our next stop is stop number 9. So when Henry wanted to build these two hotels, he approached a friend of his, Franklin Smith.
Yeah.
Franklin Smith had built his family's winter home here in St. Augustine. And it opened in 1883, 5 years before these two. So he asked his friend, what did you build your home out of? And that's it over there. That's our next stop, stop number 9. And Franklin said, well, it's a new construction method with a new material. It's called poured concrete. Now that poured concrete mix, it has coquina in there to make it extra strong. Right over there, you see those lines that run around this building? That's where the molds were. And they pour that coquina concrete mix in those molds, let it cure for 3 days, move the molds up, repeat the process until voila, right there, folks. You have your family's winter home here in St. Augustine, and it remained so until 1911. Mr. Smith passed then. He sold it to Abraham Musalem, a prolific collector of fine art from around the world. Take a look at these posters off to your right as we pass by. That's what you can see inside, particularly the third one. That's what the middle looks like. Finally carved Egyptian furniture, vases, sculptures from all over the world, and much more. Now I won't ring the bell here. I'll say ding ding, and that's your cue that you can exit the trolley on either side, your choice. Fountain to your right, $84,000.
Don't matter. I
In
don't
exchange
care.
for that $88,000 church.
Don't matter to me. I'm good.
Now, why is this building called the Lightner Museum today? It's because Mr. Otto Lightner, a wealthy Boston, he was from Chicago. He owned Hobbies magazine, and his hobby was collecting things from all over the world. He needed a building this size to display it all in, so he bought it in 1946. Inside, you can see perhaps the most amazing collection of crystal you'll ever see. And is anybody on board the Trolley? Right there in that brown door. And right next door, you'll see the lettering on top. It's the ice plant. Over St Augustine for over 600 years. For he is not the fountain of youth, and he is not a statue. You're going to see him when we turn into the V of 1565. He'll be straight ahead of you. And the old senator is a grand old live oak tree, said to be over 600 years old. Now, part of the legend of this tree is that if you kiss your significant other underneath this tree, your relationship will last forever. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been looking at y'all for almost an hour and a half. I have a photographic memory. I've got all your faces memorized, but I'll make a promise to you.
It would be right there. This is the oldest tree in the world.
I promise if you do some smooching back there, I will not watch. So please take a picture too as we come to a stop.
Here's the oldest tree. That's the old senator. Live oak. 1530.
Okay, that was my dispatcher. He's asking me to slow down.
Now we're going to stop here for lunch today at Ann Malley's Deli and Pub. I'm going and have a sandwich and a beer. I got husband daycare here. Okay, these were the original gates into the original city here. Okay, we're heading up to the old fort up here. Okay, we're making headway. We're getting up there. we got up here on top. There's the courtyard down below. We've got lots of school kids here. They're on field trips.
They're not real cannons.
You can see quite a ways from this whole fort. Okay, it begins. After days of watching the British prepare, the burst of smoke signal from their attack of the island. The sentry in the San Carlos watchtower in front of you yells and rings the bell. His quick action alerts the garrison, and the British are firing at the Castile. Soldiers surge to their posts or run for cover. This marked the beginning of the 38-day siege in 1740. In the end, the cannon fire partially damaged the eastern outer wall, and bombardment killed 2 townspeople.
I wonder what they had up here.
Okay, here's the King's Coffer treasury room. Yeah, didn't find any of these today. 1737. It's hard to tell.
And then the bone saw. Those surgeons had to be pretty strong because it takes a lot of strength to cut bone. So they cut the bone and they make sure that the veins all
Yeah, but there's an upstairs and another one too.
This is the senator tree, and the reason they call it the senator is crooked and shady.
guys will be together forever.
Now here's a sheriff's car, 1948 Ford. The old St. John's County Jail, built in 1891. The county jail held prisoners until 1953. Pretty old jail.